back here. We just want it to be there. So it's the taking of this and let your leg slide forward again. So it's easy, the leg will just always slide forward. Like that, yeah. So the thigh actually comes, your knee comes away from the saddle on the outside a little bit, like that. And you see how that automatically weighs your seat bump. So from now, I can only tell you this, but folks, for the rest of your life, and that means in the rising trot as well, you have to get your outside leg back like that. Now, the shorter your stirrups you have, the harder it is to do that. Which is also why we lengthen our stirrups. As, if you are a jumper rider, you should lengthen your stirrups for flat work, because if your legs are up like this, it's impossible to really do much. Yes, ma'am?
So on a circle,
yes.
Is your outside leg just a little further back?
All the time, yes. Anytime the horse is bent. So anytime the horse is bent one way or the other, you're in either left diagonal position or you're in right diagonal position. Now these are neutral positions. Now from this position, you might have to use a little more inside leg or a little more outside leg, or this or that, you know what I'm saying? But they're basic positions from which we work. So when the horse is correct, I'm in this position, but I'm not doing anything at all. And I'm just letting everything relax because the horse is doing what it's supposed to be doing. But what you'll find is that once you can do this, all of your circles, all of your lateral work, all of a sudden will be infinitely better. And the better that you get at this, the easier all of it will become. Because once the horse is over its back, all you have to do to turn a horse, people ask, well, how do you turn a horse? My trainer says to pull on the inside rein, I push it with the inside leg, and run it with the outside leg. A horse that's working over its back, you just put yourself in the position of the turn, and the horse turns. It's as simple as that. It's not a complicated thing, I actually could write a book on it. My book on riding would be about 10 pages long. It would tell you everything that you actually need to know. We see books, these convoluted books that are written by people who've never really done anything, like Charles Tecumseh. He's a man who's never trained any horses. He's never done anything. He's never competed anywhere since he was 16 years old. And yet he writes these books that are 300-page, theses about things that, I read 15 minutes of it and I'm out of my mind bored. It's obviously, people who don't really know about things make things very complicated, right? It's like even an atomic bomb. Once they figured out how to do it, it's really not a hard thing to do. Anybody could do it if you could get the materials to do it. It's not, a difficult thing, nor is this, once we understand it and do it correctly, okay? Good, now back in the walk. So that means for the rest of your life, you know where your outside leg is going to be. And I want you to try that today as we go on, as much as you can. Now, once again, I'm not going to scream and yell at you about that, because I know that it's going to take you 5 years to be, to perfect it. That's what it takes. It takes 5 years, folks, to develop an educated dressage seat on the average. Got to remember, I've been doing this since I was 5 years old, so I have something like almost 60 years of doing this. But believe me, it took me years to figure it out. Unfortunately, I never had a good instructor, the way you guys do. I had a lot of bad instructors that I tried, and then I had Nuno Oliveira, who was a complete... The reason it's so confusing about Nuno is he was a terrible, terrible teacher. And by the time most people that were my age, my generation that were riding with him, he was really an old drunk. I mean, I love the man, I say these things, but I want people to understand that's how we ended up with people like Dominique Barbier going around saying he was his student. We have people like Carl Hester saying, not Carl Hester, but Carl Philippe saying he was his student. I knew all these people. They were just kids who rode for a little while with him and used his name, and they don't do anything like he did. So anyway, my kind of point. But because he wasn't a very good teacher, I wouldn't say that I studied with him as I would say I studied him. And I studied his history and what he was doing to come up to find a conclusion about what he was ultimately doing, which most people did not do. They came away with working with him. As I said, almost everybody who worked with him at my age, he had a bunch of 35-year-old sway-backed horses, and he said he'd fall asleep while he was giving lessons. I mean, he was a terrible, terrible teacher. But he was like going and sitting at the feet of Picasso in his last years. There were things that he said that made it worthwhile. And when I went back and studied his real history, then I went, okay, well now I get it, because what he was showing people in his older years before he died, after he was completely, he went into retirement and came out of retirement because he had a wife in a mental institution that he was trying to pay for and had no money. That's the only reason why he ever came out of retirement. So anyway, so he's a confusing figure for people because of that reason, because there are so many people who took some lessons from him in his older years and thought they got what he was doing when I mean, he didn't teach or explain anything. If you asked him any question, his answer was always the same: make them round like a ball. And then he'd go back to smoking a cigarette and having a drink. I mean, that's all he would ever say about anything, you know. So, I mean, I tell people, you know, because you need to get a perspective on some of these people, and that's what kind of the problem with our teaching, you know, in our generation was that, once again, after World War II, we lost 25 years of the horse business. We lost them. And those few old trainers like Nuno who were still around were, you know, in his case, too old and, you know, too drunk. I mean, I don't want to say like I'm disrespecting him, because I love the man. But on the other hand, I want everybody else to be realistic about what he was actually teaching in his later years and why we ended up with all these so-called Nuno Oliveira trainers that really aren't at all. Go large in that walk, now really big and active. All the way down there, like that. Get that going again, go large in the walk. There you go. So every time if he disengages the back, then the first thing we have to do is always apply the leg. Has to be the first thing that has to happen. That's what it means to ride a horse from the back to the front instead of pulling the neck into it. You know, if you're using draw reins, if you need draw reins or German reins or any of these other things, devices that pull a horse's head into a position, you're riding the front end of the horse and not the back end. Any real rider can shape a horse from the back forward without the use of any of those gadgets. Go large in the walk or severe bits or anything else. Keep that big walk going, and we're going to go all the way up to A, and then we're going to turn by the center line and do a leg deal to the right.
We're ahead of schedule.
Whatever feels like a comfortable turn, don't feel like you have to hit exactly the center line. I always want you to have rhythm in the horse. At this level, we're never worried about accuracy. We're worried about rhythm and keeping the horse over its back. Accuracy becomes later. There, a little more step over. That's good though. It's coming nice. A little more step. And keep trying to soften him at the same time. So once you get this step over, have a little more contact there. That when I say contact, I'm meaning take the slack out of the reins and actually work actively to soften him by softening with the inside rein. Go ahead and do that again. So we don't just ask him to walk over and don't do anything with the reins. Maintain contact and soften him a little bit. Either take your inside rein a little bit and just step over a little bit more. Keep softening him. The hands are never rigid. They're never doing nothing at all, other than when he's doing nothing, and when he's perfect. But even then, they stay soft and active, and that is active in a way that they're not just rigid, as you might say. I don't mean they're all over the place. I mean that they're always moving and keeping that suppleness in the jaw and never locking up against the mouth of the horse. If you lock up, he's going to lock up. There, keep that. A couple of steps over. That's coming really nicely. There. Now he's starting to stretch through it. That's it. There. Now that was the last step. So you feel like you got him to step up underneath you, and then you got the stretch, didn't you? Yeah. That's getting the stretch from the right place, and you had that outside leg back, so you got more step underneath you, didn't you? Yeah. Go ahead and do that again. That outside leg thing is the most important thing you'll ever learn about the position of a rider. If you don't have your outside leg back correctly, it's always going to be harder to bend or turn a horse. Try to let your hips go underneath you a little bit. You're a little bit too arched out behind. Try to find the bottom of your pelvis there a little better. There you go, like that. Good. Now more active in the walk, and try shoulder in down the next long side. There, good stretch there. Could be a little more active, but I'd rather have a stretch and a little slower than not. There, a little shoulder in there, keep softening, stretch up and back. When the horse stretches away, just stretch up and back. Never come forward. So we can go back. When the horse wants to trot off, just let your shoulders sink back and lift up and back a little bit. There, then all the way down that stretch again. Good. There. Keep the walk, just work for a little more activity so you can get a little bigger step there. And it's stretching nicely, but I want a little more step there. Now go ahead and just go large and lengthen the walk down the next long side, keeping that big active step. There, all the way down there, like that. Really good now. Really good. Keep that going. Keep the slack out of your reins every time. There you go, like that. And change the rein across the next diagonal. pointer there, just get contact again, soften, get the on your new inside leg there. There you go, like that, good. And go ahead and go large in that walk again, keeping that. And now we're going to turn by the center line today and leg yield to the left. Let him stop and go in the bathroom if he wants to do that. Never beat up the horse for going to the bathroom, folks. That was one of the funniest things at Nuno's that I ever saw. Kind of sad. This guy stopped, and the horse stops to go to the bathroom. And this guy just starts whipping the hell out of this horse. I thought Nuno was going to kill the man. He threw him off the property on the spot. Tap your whip there, one more step over. Now you're bringing your right leg sometimes even further back than you need to. There, just let it stay right where it is. Good, now increase the walk again. A little more swing in it. Step, give a bigger walk now. Bigger walk, keep opening up that walk, opening it up, opening it up, opening it up. There, like that. There, now get contact and get this soft, supple stretch out of him again, keeping that active walk. There, all the way down, like that, good, there. Feel the wave come up underneath you. That's what you're always looking for. The wave to pick you up and carry you forward. You know, that's when riding becomes really exciting. Once you get back up and you begin to feel that wave lifting you up and carrying you. It's a feeling that you'll never get from some hollowback horse. It makes you flying. Once again, that's what wings on horses. And they really lift up, and they feel so light and balanced, and you can gallop cross-country on them effortlessly. Watch Michael Young. You guys have all seen him going cross-country. That's a guy who's applying what we're doing to cross-country work. That's a man who's riding his horse perfectly balanced cross-country. Phenomenal. As Mark Todd did in the past, and David O'Connor. David O'Connor's mother studied with Nuno Oliveira for many years. Keep that going, and again, leg yield. There you go. One more step over. A little more. There you go. So keep stepping him over, and at the same time, so you need to actively soften him a little more. You're letting him get a little too much out of the reins in order to get the lateral work. So keep your contact and soften. Go ahead and do a little more step over there, from right there. Keep softening it. That's it, that's it. Just walk. Try not to let him turn in a circle like that. Turn right in a circle right away. Go right back to where you started there. There, all the way back down again. A little more active in that. Now we're going to try shoulder in down the next long side. A little more active step still. There, like that. It gets back into that position. There. There, now shoulder in down the long side. And ask him to soften a little bit, so you can be a little more active softening in there a little bit, and ask for a little more activity. There you go, like that. There, you just have to take a little contact and soften him. He's ready to do that. There you go, let him go down. That's the way, just like that. Now do the same thing on the next long side. So we want to get the position and then use that position as he steps up to get the stretch and get him deeper over his back. A little more step over. He's avoiding the step. Stepping back over again, back into the track. That's it. Keep going. Now just keep that going and right into shoulder in again down the next long side. Let your shoulders come up. There you go. Let them have the stretch. Position, let your shoulders come up and back. There you go. Like that. Really stretch up. Don't let yourself get forward on your crotch, so to speak, and start leaning forward. Got to stay on your seat bones. And shoulder in again there. Now ask him to soften. There you go. Like that. So you soften at the same time. You got to do both things. A good position now. Soften him a little more actively softening him. There you go. And usually that's the inside rein. Not always. It's wherever you feel the most resistance. There, and then let him down that, like that. So we soften the jaw. Now you guys have probably noticed by this point that I never use the word half halt. which is what people would say. Hapault is the worst word that was ever